Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Live Ultralight podcast powered by Outdoor Vitals. Today, we have another Behind the Designs episode for you for a new fleece hoodie. But this is, I call it fleece, but there's a lot more that's going into this piece. So we really need to break it down because there's 3 different fabrics. But I would say this is kind of like a part 2 to the Mountain Pursuit launch. We're launching 2 new products right now, a 3rd product to come about a month and a half down the line. And we started with the Ultra Dynamic Pants. So if you missed that episode, you may want to go back and view that because we did talk about some of the more like broad aspects of what we wanted to do in this line. But we'll try to cover it a little bit again here. But in this particular episode, we're going to be talking about the initial idea of this hoodie, what we wanted to accomplish, the R&D process behind it, and then what was built and how we feel like that performs and why we think it's such an exciting piece. To me, this is a very, very exciting piece because, in a world where you've got a lot of companies out there always trying to innovate, it seems less common to have a piece that feels really, really unique. But in my mind, this is one of those pieces. This isn't like a let's improve it and do our take on it. It's like there's really not much, that's built like this and used like this. And so I don't know, I'm really excited about it. I think you guys are really going to like this piece. So this has been a piece that's been under development for, I would say this one easily 3 years.
For sure.
Because we've been testing these fabrics in different configurations for more than 3 years. And so it's been a very long research and development process, design process. But it's resulted in a piece that is just really exceptional. So to back up just a little bit, we talked about in the last one that we obviously were working on our own designs in this category. We had some friends of ours that own a company called Exo Mountain Gear approach us and say, hey, we would love to work with you guys a little bit and give some feedback on design. There's no financial partnership here. There's no affiliate program promotion, like just true, authentic. We just want to have some input on some apparel pieces and to just go through some of the R&D process with you guys. And we're like, and it just really matched up. And we talked about in the last episode how these guys are mountain athletes. And so we love it. Like this is the stuff we do. This is the stuff our audience does. And so it's a great opportunity to use other people that design their products for their company to also come in and give us insight on our R&D process as well.
I think the other cool thing about it that made it make a lot of sense is that so everything that you just said, plus these guys, they also have a podcast like us, and they do a lot of answering questions and providing recommendations to their audience. And that was kind of a part of why they wanted to kind of work with us and collaborate on this is so that they could feel good about what they're recommending when they're fielding questions. When somebody asks them, what do you recommend for this pant or this puffy or whatever it is, that they they wanted to provide a solid recommendation that
aligned with their values.
That aligned with their values and their performance requirements. So that was another cool element to how this all kind of ended up coming together.
We talk about this in different podcasts quite often about how we don't like venture capital money. We don't go retail. We sell direct to consumer. And these guys, they feel the same way. They're family owned. They're direct to consumer brand only. But also, they kind of gave their frustrations because they're sportsmen. They're in the hunting world, and they gave their frustrations about like the brands in that category of the last 10 years have just constantly sold out to venture capitalists.
Kind of like this brand deterioration.
Yeah, the values have changed. Yeah. And so they're like, man, we used to love this, and then they sold out, and this changed, and this changed. And so there's some frustration there from them. And like I said, we share those similar values. And so we've been friends with them for a while. We've sent them prototypes and things like that for years now. But it was just an opportunity to do something that would really bridge those worlds a little bit more. We've talked about this on other episodes too. Both me and Brigham are sportsmen. I mean, I grew up hunting from as early as I can possibly remember, hunting with my grandpa. It's just something that has been a part of life for me. And it's one of the ways that I truly enjoy nature. A lot of times, like sometimes we'll get a little bit of flack for being like, you guys are out there doing like these 100-mile trails and you're just doing 20-mile plus days and you're not even seeing the country. Well, like that's like one side of how I enjoy nature. Another side is that I will literally backpack into a wilderness and sit on a hill from sunup to sundown and just watch animals. Like I just enjoy the heck out of doing that stuff. And so anyways, that all being said, there is this crossover point where we use our gear for hunting all the time and have. And these pieces will fall into some of those categories, but they also just fall into the category of you're not walking down a graded, beautiful trail in the middle of summer. We're talking about pieces that are built to go down rough trails, to go off trail, to be used in shoulder seasons, 3-season, 4-season use, to be used in high alpine environments where weather changes on a dime. It goes from sunny to a blizzard back to sunny because those storms are just so intense when you're up that high. These are pieces that are built for real mountain conditions, which is why they fall into what we call our mountain pursuit line. So if you're someone who isn't just backpacking in the middle of summer, if you're someone who is going to go summiting peaks, backpacking in the fall or the spring or the winter, or just doesn't take the most graded popular trails there are all the time, these products are going to be for you. And guess what? We have a ton of you guys out there. So our audience likes this. We like this. And so it was a fun opportunity to get to work on this. Now, this particular piece, the design intent around this was interesting. And I'll kind of, again, for those of you that are listening to this podcast, you're likely customers or likely know some things about us. So one of our best-selling products is our Ventus Active hoodie. And that product is absolutely exceptional. It's got breathable face fabrics for what it is, a really lightweight insulation piece that is like warmer than you really give it credit. It's got an active insulation that stretches and moves. It's got vents. But the thing about that piece is it still is not like an open knit material. And when you are being really active, you can still overheat in that piece unless it's really cold temperatures. And guess what? We're active a lot and we're active year round. And so there was still a niche placement for us that we thought there's a mid layer that we could build that is a little bit more breathable. But it isn't also just like a fleece, right? Because a fleece jacket, yes, it can insulate. Yes, it can keep you warm and do maybe some moisture management. But the second the wind blows, it cuts straight through a fleece piece and you're back to being cold. And so there are some areas here where we thought we had some opportunity, I guess you could say, to build something that wasn't in our lineup already and really wasn't in anyone's lineup. So as we're getting started in this project, Brigham, what are you thinking what's your end goal? Like if we could build this, then we've accomplished the right objective.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's more based around like a condition set or a scenario that is probably much more common than people would acknowledge or recognize. You mentioned the Ventus. That's a synthetic lofted insulation piece that, it uses synthetic lofted insulation, and it's very warm for what it weighs. But it has, in terms of being active and using it for extended periods of time, there's a huge opportunity there. And that's kind of the condition set of where kind of what generated this piece for me at least is that there's conditions, meaning temperature related conditions, environmental conditions, that if you find yourself in, it's too cold for whatever reason, be that just the ambient temperature, be that a temperature combined with a lot of wind or some precipitation, where it's just too cold to hike just in your base layer or your sun hoodie. So what do you wear? If you're going to be moving for extended periods of time, and this is like when I say moving, I'm not talking running. I'm talking just hiking. So where you're generating enough body heat to sweat, it can be cold enough that you need something besides that, besides your base layer. Now, we oftentimes have talked about the application of a windbreaker, which is an outstanding piece. It doesn't insulate at all. It doesn't wick moisture. It doesn't manage moisture at all. Its intention is to just block wind, and wind sucks the heat away from our body. But there are plenty of times where there's just a little bit of wind, but the temperatures are cold. Again, I guess the key here is like the temperatures are cold enough to warrant something more than a base layer or a base layer with a windbreaker, because you need warmth but breathability. And so for example, if we were to say, well, why don't we just put on a Ventus hoodie? The answer is because it's too warm and not breathable enough. And we would too quickly overheat that system and overwhelm it, and then we are suboptimal. We've now de-optimized our clothing system. And so that's kind of the condition set where there's this need. So there are, at the time I started like kind of we started like putting together ideas for this. There's materials out there, fabrics out there that existed, that their benefits that relate to what I just described are very apparent. They're very recognizable. And there were some pieces out there that existed that used some of these materials, but when I analyzed that condition set that I described, I did not see that there was the right option out there to satisfy basically what I would describe as put it on and leave it on all day, because it never gets warm enough to hike without it, and it's cold enough that you need to be wearing it, and that's kind of a wide range of temperatures in like cold weather. So I didn't see something that I could use that I could do that with. Just like put it on when I get out of the tent in the morning and sleep in it at the night. So essentially never take off for days on end. Yeah. And in order for that to work well, the piece has to breathe very, very well, and it has to manage moisture. And that moisture, most of that 98% of the moisture, I'm talking like our own body moisture. So has to manage that via breathability, the expulsion of excess moisture, and the drying of our own sweat, because inevitably we sweat and our clothing gets wet. We just want it to be able to dry out quickly, and it can't dry out quickly if the piece is not breathable enough, and it has to be a combination of breathability yet enough insulation that it makes our body warm enough to actually drive the moisture away from our skin through the system. And so this was a long time ago. And so I looked at some of these materials available and just thought like, well, testing is the only way to find the answer. And so like we arranged for a bunch of different prototypes. We got prototypes made. Basically, I drew up I wouldn't say a basic design, but I drew up a design that could be made using different fabrics, different arrangements of fabrics that were all kind of in a range of breathability. And so we got a bunch of prototypes made and really just started testing them in winter conditions to see where they landed. Were they too warm? Were they not breathable enough? Were they too breathable? That's kind of like where this started.
Well, and I think it's worth talking a little bit about some other things that are out there, right? Because part of what spurred off some of this interest for me too was obviously like the application for sure. But when a newer fabric or something that comes out, you pay attention to it. And the Alpha Direct fleece, right? Like I think that's the I don't know. There's so many.
Yeah, that's one of the
fleeces that kind of got some popularity, and people were kind of talking about it and using it, and so like I ordered one. It's like, okay, well let's just look at this fabric, and like I have had that for years and years now, and I'm like I cannot find a great application for it, and the reason why is it's just a full fleece, and so you basically have to wear it underneath something for it to insulate and to create warmth. And it's so open that like the slightest breeze will go straight through that piece. And so there are some things like that where it's like, this is a really cool fabric. But we didn't feel like it was being used the way that it should be used.
And that's, I think that's a really important thing to kind of paint this picture or bracket things in, is like to get the most out of it. There's kind of just certain parameters, there's certain truths that exist in the world, and that applies to what we're trying to do here with this piece. Going back to material, so in terms of, we wanted this piece to be something like to be truly active in all hours of the day, consistently from sunup to sundown, something that we can put on and leave on, okay? And that is like, for example, the product that one of the fabrics we end up using in the production Pursuit Hybrid Fleece is called Primaloft Evolve Active Insulation. And it is a fleece insulation, but it's very different than what people generally think of if they're talking just like a polar fleece, right? But it is I would categorize it as a fleece insulation. It's very much like Polartec Alpha, and some of the background there I probably won't disclose, but I've spoken to people from both Polartec and Primaloft, and I've used both and prototyped both. But
the amount of prototypes,
it's a lot. But what they are, and if everybody or most people are probably familiar with general polar fleece. There you hear about 100 weight, 200 weight, and 300 weight. Each one's thicker and warmer. They're very breathable. They're a bit bulky, a little bit heavy when you make an entire piece out of that. Well, Polartec Alpha, Primaloft Evolve, they're really just a higher loft or a higher pile. And the way that I like to describe Primaloft Evolve or Polartec Alpha is if you think of a forest. The ground is your skin. The trees in the forest, that is the pile. That's the fleece fibers that create the loft, and they're fuzzy and comfy and cozy. That forest can be really, really dense, or it can be really, really sparse. And how tall the trees are, that is the pile. That's how long those fibers are. So the typical polar fleece 100 weight, think of that as like grass. Really thick, green, dense grass. It's very, very close together, but it's more low, right? It's like a lower bulk, lower pile. But these are a high pile, but they're a lower density. So there's not as many trees in the forest, but the trees that are there are really tall, and they create a lot of loft, and they create so much loft that they can almost kind of fill in the gaps between trees. That's how that works. So it's like a high pile, loose knit. So the knit itself is very loose and open. So you got structures that are not tightly knitted together. They're loosely knitted together. And that allows for the high pile to trap and insulate heat, but the openness of it allows a lot of heat to move away or through it, but it also allows the slightest wind to penetrate it very, very easily. And that's where this, your comment about just trying to find a use case for something that is just straight Polartec Alpha. So just think of it as like a bare, a naked, open knit high pile fleece. If you make an entire piece out of that, when does it actually provide warmth? It only provides warmth when there is zero wind, or you wear it under a shell of some sort, whether that's a rain jacket or a windbreaker. That's the only time that insulation really can trap a significant or a meaningful amount of heat. And so that's exactly what we found. It's super light and people love it because it's cozy, but we want the performance out of what we make. We want it to do something other than just feel cozy. And we don't want to just make a piece that feels nice and soft when you rub your hands on it and you can wear it when it's kind of not that cold. Well, what that means is that piece isn't providing you any insulation when the purpose of that piece is meant to be to provide you insulation. So, but that does not mean that fabric does not have a lot of potential. It has can provide some really, really good benefits.
So like the best use case in my mind for that piece still now is to wear that and then put a fairly breathable windbreaker over it. Like
a windbreaker over it.
But then the problem with that is you've now done that throughout the entire piece,
right.
And now it's quite a warm piece everywhere.
Everywhere.
So, again, these are some of the problems we're looking at when we're starting to design, saying, I don't know if we like this, right? Because the cool thing about an open knit like that, too, is the comfort. It's the flexibility. It's the stretch. Well, if you put a windbreaker over that, you significantly reduce the comfort, the stretch, the mobility of it. And so there's just pros and cons to this that kind of led us to these problem sets where we're like, let's design around this.
Yeah, let's design around it and just get more out of it. Like, let's try to get as much potential out of everything we use to make this one piece that can do as much as we can get out of it. But in doing so, we still wanted to kind of do our due diligence and prove it. So we actually made prototypes that were 100% naked Polartec Alpha. We made some that had a little bit of grid fleece in certain areas of it mixed in. We made prototypes that had different mapping of Polartec Alpha naked, and then covered, and then put like basically windbreaker fabric over certain areas of that. And we tested many variations of all of those things. And what I did personally is I would go, so there's a trail up in late fall. There's a paved road that closes, and it becomes a snow trail, and it's at like 10,500 feet. And where we live in southern Utah, it's never blowing less than 10 miles per hour up there, ever, especially not in the wintertime. So what I would do is I packed a pack, kept it loaded, so every day I was hiking with the same thing, and I would go up there with one of these different prototypes on and just see how it felt. I'm hiking the same hike every time with the same amount of weight, wearing snowshoes, which is a highly strenuous activity. And basically what I found is the pieces that were, the piece that was just 100% naked Polartec Alpha was useless. It did me zero good. I had to put on a windbreaker over it. Otherwise, it was way too cold. And the temperatures were always plus or minus like 3 degrees of 20 degrees. So it was like 20 degrees, 10 mile per hour winds within 3 degrees of that every time. And it's a slightly uphill. So I'm definitely doing enough physical work to generate adequate body heat. However, I was not getting heat retention. And so we had some prototypes that had some windbreaker coverage on the torso, but not on the sleeves. It was very interesting. Like it was a sensation that you don't feel very often, where you're like too cold because your arms are too cold. Like that does not happen very much. So yeah, it really influenced a lot of the design, and I started kind of a process of elimination. Just said like that's not going to work with a lot of things. Now I also will say we tested some pieces that were just like fully covered, like meaning there's Polartec Alpha or Primaloft Evolve with a face fabric over everything, which is essentially the same as that plus a windbreaker, except this face fabric is a little bit more breathable. And even then, it was too hot. Like it just lacked enough breathability to expel enough heat that it was just too hot to really hike very slowly in 20-degree temperatures. And so that helped too, because it really helped bracket in where we wanted to go. But then it just started a lot of thought processes of like, okay, well, where do we need to be warm for sure? What on our body physically needs to retain the most heat for our body to function? And the answer to that is vital organs. The reason our fingers get numb is because when our body gets cold, it conserves heat to our vital organs and restricts blood flow to our extremities. That's why our fingers and toes get cold. And so it's important to keep our core warm. So basically wanted to come up with a body mapped combination of using the right, what I'll just call now like a active insulation. That's the high pile loose knit fleece with a face fabric over it that would block just enough wind, to stop us from losing too much heat. With like the consideration that like breathability throughout this piece is like really important. And then also not being so committed to just this one insulation type that we'd say there's areas of this piece that we could benefit from like less bulk, that there's fleece options out there that will block enough wind without a face fabric that are smooth, streamlined, low bulk, breathable enough. And so that just kind of like started putting together, like we can use a combination of a grid fleece in some parts of this, and also there's different insulation weights of Primaloft Evolve. Like there's like maybe 4 or more options. And we tested options that were warmer and slightly lighter, heavier, slightly lighter. And heavier is warmer, lighter is less warm. So we just tested a bunch, man. It was, yeah.
Yeah, we had a whole bunch of options for sure. But I think hopefully that like backstory and that context just gives you the idea of we are trying to completely optimize the fabrics, both in terms of what they're built to do and then also real world conditions. Now, Brigham gave a story of, hiking basically in really winter conditions. And I just want to say like it absolutely works in those conditions, but those are not the only conditions where this piece works. I used this a ton from September till March. So it's not just like dead of winter conditions. Just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, the whole point here was to build something that really maximized what the fabrics offered and to build us something that was extremely comfortable for all day wear. And so comfort for all day wear is comfort next to skin, but it's also the ability to move and stretch. Like there's a reason that t-shirts are this open knit and they pull and they stretch and they move with the body, and that you're not wearing a woven material for a t-shirt, because woven material, it's going to feel more like, say, like your historic cotton jeans that have no stretch in them. Like that's not as comfortable, especially on the upper body where you're moving so much. Your arms have so much more range of motion. And so we wanted something that was going to stretch, move, be comfortable on the skin. We wanted something that could be on the body as much as possible, so that layering up and layering down was almost a non-issue, depending on the time of year you're out there. So you needed to be able to vent both in terms of fabrics and placements of fabrics, and also in terms of zipper placements and things like that. And I think after, I don't know, many 10, 20, 30, I don't know, like different prototypes, we really learned a ton, and we dialed that into what we feel like now is an amazing fleece. And so let's talk a little bit about what we want to, like what this fleece means. The fleece to me means that it can block a little bit of wind. It can retain warmth in core artery areas, or in areas that, you just don't want that cold wind to be affecting as much. It means that when I put this thing on or take it off, that it comes on and off easy, and that I can move my arms in any direction without getting that restriction or that pull on, say, the elbow or the shoulder. Like this piece could almost be worn as a base layer. I'll just say it's like that comfortable. Yeah. But you're still going to have a little bit of wind protection. If the wind is just blowing like crazy, I'm not going to say this is the piece. Like the Ventus is probably the piece. If you just have a constant, blast of wind all the time, but if you're getting gusts of wind or spells of wind and you're still being active, or maybe there's no wind, but you don't want to have too much wind repellency, because if you were to wear a windbreaker when there's no wind, then you're really trapping in vapor, moisture and stuff like that.
Or it's no wind and very cold, right? Because then you can really reap the benefits of the breathability.
Yeah. So we built this, and that's why in the name we have included hybrid, because really to build this, we needed 3 different fabrics mapped in certain ways to get the breathability, to get a little bit of wind resistancy, to get the mobility, to get the comfort, to get the warmth we wanted out of this piece. Yeah. And the end result is exceptional. I actually went back over this last year and looked at photos of different hiking trips I was on, hunting trips I was on, and just things in general. And I was pretty amazed to see how often I was wearing this piece, and I didn't even remember wearing the piece. Like, meaning I was kind of living sun up to sundown in this piece a lot last fall and winter and spring, because and you don't notice it because it's just so comfortable. It's just so easy to keep on. In fact, I started wearing it in September, and I specifically remember September was kind of that shoulder season where I did take it off only in the middle of the day if I was actively moving like bigger mileage. Other than that, I had it on in the mornings, I had it on in the evenings, and I usually slept in the thing.
Yeah.
It just has that range of comfort, and I see a lot of application for it, both in that and even in like winter running conditions. Like I will probably run a decent amount in this piece, either a windbreaker or this, depending on the conditions of the day. But lots of application for that. So let's talk about the fabrics that we ended up using and how we body mapped them to get this end result that we've been building towards.
Yeah. So let's start with just the kind of the two layer areas. So first, the materials. So when I refer to the 2-layer areas, those are the areas that have a face fabric with Primaloft Evolve, that high pile, open knit, lofted insulation or lofty fleece insulation underneath. So that's a 75 gram per square meter Primaloft Evolve. That's that really lofty fleece material. And then on the face, it's a 30D woven nylon fabric. And that one we took specific care to find the right one, the right face fabric. And again, came from testing, is we did test less breathable face fabrics and found that we were wanting better breathability, meaning it kind of capped off the heat too much and did not expel enough sweat, vapor, and heat enough. So we really learned that we wanted a really breathable face fabric. So this is a very breathable face fabric. It's got like a 50 CFM air permeability rating, that's quite breathable for a woven nylon face fabric. But in conjunction with the Primaloft Evolve, it's a really good combination.
Yeah, that face fabric that you're talking about too, like you can kind of think of it like a super air permeable windbreaker fabric.
Yep.
Some windbreakers out there are not air permeable. Ours are, and this is a very breathable, similar fabric.
Similar fabric type. Fabric type to that.
So moisture can push straight through it. Air, you can literally put your mouth to it and breathe straight through it. But because it is a woven, which is like a tighter weaving of the yarns, it still is going to shed the wind a good amount. And we've been very happy with our Nebo is an incredible piece. It's an incredible piece. And so this concept of how we think about what a windbreaker fabric should be is just directly applied to this, and we want it to be super breathable. It'll shed the wind, it'll block the wind, it's not air permeate, like it's not going to completely block it, but it does a fantastic job of both managing your sweating on the inside and winds coming from the outside.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about if you're wearing the piece, you need to retain enough heat to justify wearing the piece. So that's the conditions you find yourself in, then it still needs to be warm enough, but it also, you don't want it to completely block all air movement either. So very breathable.
So that's the 2-layer part. That's the part of the jacket that's going to retain the most heat because it's both blocking wind on the outside, but also has the most loft on the inside on those.
And those areas actually have the highest warmth to weight ratio on the piece. So any of those 2-layer pieces actually they're the warmest and they have the highest warmth to weight ratio. And so we have that on the, I'd say, upper 2/3 of the front torso, the shoulders and the outside of the arm, from the shoulder all the way down to the wrist cuff on the outer arm. That's all that kind of hybrid 2-layer combination. And then in the back, it kind of goes from the top of the shoulder straight down kind of between the shoulder blades. And then towards probably like the top of your lumbar, it flares out and goes kind of around the sides of the lower torso. That's the hybrid double layer sections. Again, maximize warmth and minimize weight.
So those are our key. So think of it in some ways almost like the concept of wearing a puffy vest. The idea there is that if you're keeping your core temperature warm, your extremities stay warm as well. And so the layering of that is over vital organs, it's over the heart, it's over the arteries going down your spine and back. It's basically over your main torso areas. But then also the outside of the arm, it's not as much a core, like, how to say it. The nice thing about putting it down the outside of the arm is that it sheds the wind.
Yeah, that's where the wind hits the arm.
You take a lot of wind on your arms, but because it's only half of the arm, you still retain a lot of breathability, and that's where we'll get into the the third fabric used in this.
So the third fabric is a grid fleece, and the grid fleece it kind of accomplishes two things. It's really low bulk, so we also use it in areas where, for comfort and range of motion and mobility, it really benefits to have minimal bulk. And so that is from the inner part of the arm at the cuff, all the way in the inner arm, under the armpit, and then down the sides, all the way down to the side of the torso, and then under the lower third, so beneath, or the lower third below the 2-layer hybrid portion in the front, that's also grid fleece. And then in the back, the outer scapula area, so to the left and right of the hybrid portion in the middle, basically where at least the outer half of your scapula, that's also grid fleece. And so the other thing that the grid fleece does is it adds a little bit of breathability, minimizes bulk, and then it adds really good stretch, especially. So you could look at the back of this piece and kind of like wonder, why is there grid fleece on the outer scapula? Well, through testing all these different combinations of fabrics, it took a while before there was always just this slight sense of we just wish that the range of motion, kind of when we move our arms forward or reach or stretch, we wish there was a little bit more give in the back. And so basically that's because the 2-layer portion, those fabrics don't stretch at the same rate that the grid fleece stretches. The grid fleece stretches a lot more. And so throughout trial and error and testing, we learned that if we just put grid fleece on the outer scapula, that provides the stretch and the range of motion, and takes the stress off the 2-layer sections. And so that was like the final key, or the final part of the equation for that range of motion, is just adding the stretch of the grid fleece in the scapula areas. And then, like I said, inner arm, kind of the belly area. And that belly area, again, for minimizing bulk, we wear backpacks a lot. So We want the least amount of bulk where we're going to be wrapping the hip belt around the front of our body and buckling things down. And then it adds a little bit of increased breathability everywhere that grid fleece is as well. So,
yeah. So, man, when I've thought about this piece and how to describe it, it really is just a piece that it's like a windbreaker and a fleece hoodie, like blended together in this kind of perfect combination that gives you that all day comfort of like a knit piece, a fleece, or think of like a cotton t-shirt, type of thing.
mm-hmm.
But then you've just got those panels that really block the wind and retain the heat. And with that, like you mentioned about like the back, like adding the grid fleece up the back, that really was like the last piece to make this feel just like you put on, say, a sun hoodie, or something that has a lot of stretch in it. Like it feels that comfortable. And, we ran this with over 20 testers, and the testers, I think, all also kind of alluded to the fact that it's all day comfort. Some of them said that they would wear it as a base layer, like, because it's just comfortable next to skin. It's flexible. It's mobile. And I don't think you would ever say that about just a windbreaker, right?
Right.
Or I don't think you'd ever say that like with other pieces of one of these fabrics alone. But the combination is just, it's really, really impressive. Okay, so we've kind of walked through that. One of the other big pieces on this, just in terms of feature set, we did put a massive zipper on this thing.
Yeah, that was one of two things I kind of didn't mention is, again, the whole thing we built to kind of balance and optimize breathability, heat retention, and then we did not want to mess around with a like minimal zipper, again, because I just want people to be able to put this on and leave it on. And a big contributor to that is that it's a very deep center front zipper. It's more than half of the torso. It's probably 2/3 length from the hood to where it stops, and you can exhaust a lot of heat really quickly if you need to. So
especially
if you
it goes right down the center of the
right
warm
down the
section.
center, yep. And so like again, if you're really getting hot, like it's covering your lungs and your heart, so you can unzip that and expose all that, and you can really dump some heat really quickly, and it's very effective.
Why not take that zipper all the way down? That's going to be a question.
For the bulk, just for the bulk and the weight. Again, hip belts, buckles, and all that. There's comfort.
When you say bulk, the way that I would say that might be like putting a zipper underneath the hip belt is not that comfortable.
Right.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. You can do it, yes, but it's not that comfortable, especially when it's something that's that close to your skin. If you've got a few layers and then a jacket with a zipper and then you're buckling on, or if you're layering up like that and you've got 3 or 4 zippers under a hip belt, it just becomes less and less comfortable.
Yeah.
By doing this more than half zip in the front, we accomplish the ability to expel the heat. We accomplish keeping the bulk down over hip belts. I think that one of the other side benefits of that is you can put like a locking zipper on things, but in general, like I can drop that zipper all the way down and it's not moving, because what I find is that if I've got a full zip and I zip it all the way down to vent, well, now that jacket starts to migrate around my body as I'm hiking,
right.
And then I'm getting like a buildup of fabric behind my body,
yep.
or under. Whereas, with this, it's kind of mindless, where you can just zip that down and it's going to still stay on. So you actually see me probably in certain videos where I will like zip a zipper almost down to the bottom, especially a rain jacket.
Yeah.
When I'm trying to vent a rain jacket, I zip it almost to the bottom, and then I leave like the last like 3 inches of it. It's kind of a weird thing to do, and it kind of works, but the zipper can still move up or down a little bit over time, because you still want the piece to be wrapped around your body and not be piling up under the lumbar or under your back on the jacket, which can happen. So that's kind of the reason for the half zip approach to this. Dump heat, keep form on the body, keep bulk down, where you're potentially stacking zippers and have a hip belt coming around.
Yeah.
As far as other features, there are thumb hole loops to. I wouldn't call them. guess you call
They're
them
loops. Thumb loops, yeah.
Thumb loops. But they're not cut into the fabric, so you can put them on, layer up, layer down, pop them back off.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily cutting into the warmth of the fabric, which is something we've also been testing with lately. If anytime you do that, you're creating a cold spot down the sleeve.
Yeah.
Let's talk about go ahead.
So I just going to mention the hood. I forgot to mention the hood is double layer. So the hood uses the Primaloft Evolve with the nylon face fabric, and it's a close fitting hood without being form fitting. We didn't see the need to make it form fitting, but it is. We absolutely wanted it to the collar come up just below the chin, and then the hood, to stay put and move with the head without feeling tight. So it doesn't feel tight on your head. It just feels like it's kind of anatomically shaped, and so it just stays put and moves with you when you're looking side to side, up and down. But again, it's our head, so we want it to retain heat. So that's why we went with the warmest combination on the piece.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the other fit aspects of it in terms of just how it fits on the body.
Yeah, I mean, really for all the materials, the fabrics to work optimally and to function as intended, this piece needs to be on the athletic fitting side. So that is one, for the heat retention, and then two, for the temperature regulation and the moisture management. So to get optimal moisture management, whether that's drying out or allowing the breathability of water vapor, the closer it is, the better. But this also is a layering piece, so we have to keep in mind that we're likely going to be putting this over even a T-shirt, if not a long sleeve, sun hoodie, base layer type hoodie with long sleeves. And so it has to allow for that without being loose fitting. We do not want it to be relaxed or loose fitting because that just takes away from the efficiency of moisture management and temperature regulation.
Yeah. Like a lot of our other pieces, it drops a little bit in the back, gives you a little bit more coverage in the rear.
Yep.
But yeah, it's not tight fitting, but it's definitely not baggy by any means. Yeah, what else are we missing in terms of just what the actual design? I mean, weight wise, size medium, you're 9.4 ounces, so extremely light. I'm not going to say that this is the lightest piece. Like technically, a Ventus is around the same weight as this thing, but the dynamic nature of this is still really high, and that's something that
very different application.
Yeah, like I would say this. I've seen a lot of from other brands and stuff when they're trying to build pieces like these. Man, they make like 16-ounce pieces all too often, or heavier, or they take like a grid fleece and they put it on a soft shell or something, and now you've got like a 1.5 pound jacket or a 2 pound. It just seems like people really creep the weight up in some of this, and so I am really happy with that weight. I'm going to be 10 ounces, under 10 ounces with a piece like this. I think it's really impressive to be able to use grid fleece, because grid fleece can be a little bit heavier at times. To be able to use that application and everything else, it's an awesome weight. Again, can you find a puffy jacket that is warmer for that weight? Yes, but that is not the design intent of this. The design intent of this is active insulation. It's different. You cannot be active in a down puffy jacket. You cannot, do the same things in the jacket as what you plan to do in this piece.
Exactly. I mean, even the mobility and the range of motion thing, you can't get that with the combination of materials that you would need to make a down puffy jacket. So, if for like people that do ski touring or even climbing, mountaineering, alpinism, you're reaching, you're grabbing an ice axe and you're reaching, so you've got a bent elbow, and then you're aggressively swinging into a ice face or a rock face, and so you're active, you're physically climbing vertically, creating body heat, but you also need to be able to reach and extend and bend the arms, and so that's a good point.
Yeah. Let's just talk about like some of the application side, just like you kind of started on there. When are you taking this piece, and who needs this piece?
Me personally, and I'll just be very straightforward. If it's summertime and I'm going to the mountains, if I know it's going to be, I will take this piece as the only insulation or warmth layer that I'm going to take if I know it's just going to be really warm. Like the overnight lows are not going to be that cool, then I would take this piece just as whatever I'm going to layer up with at night, just for that, take the slight edge off. But for me, that's not its best application. For me, it's kind of like all the other shoulder seasons or weather conditions where I'm going to be in colder temperatures, and I know I'm going to be moving a lot or intermittently a lot, and I need mobility. I'm going to be sweating in it, and I just don't want to take it off. So for me, that is more applicable, if it's in the Rocky Mountains, more applicable mid to late September, through April. And I've kind of done a lot of kind of analysis of where for me the optimum range of if it's cold and I'm hiking in snow, that generates a lot more work. For me, it's kind of like this 15 to 30, 35 degree range of if I'm steadily moving. That's where it is. And so that's kind of when I'm taking it.
Yeah, I personally, I don't think I take this in the summer. I think I bring more of a puffy jacket and maybe a windbreaker for those conditions. But as I looked back at even some of my own photos, I took it on my Wind River hike last year, which is the first week of September. And I did use it. The overnight lows were getting down to freezing, sometimes just below. And if I had one cold snap come through there, I probably would have put a lot of miles in that thing, because it has that potential. So I was wearing it basically from September. I took it to Colorado for a week, and I didn't take it off my body that week. We had blizzards come through for 2 straight days, and then it was chilly. And so mid-September, I used that thing every single day for, I'd say 80% of the day, mid-September. And then after that, October, same thing. I used it a ton all the way into the spring. This spring, I did a lot of low country desert hiking. But typical spring, I would be using it, as we're getting into the mountains and kind of chasing the snow lines up the mountains and stuff like that. So yeah, temperature range for me, it can vary. It can vary on the amount of wind. It can vary on the amount of, the actual temperature itself. But yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I'm probably hiking in this piece when I'm, 40 degrees and below, kind of in that range. If it's higher than 40, I'm probably just doing windbreaker or something more in those categories. But there's the variability of the wind in there. If there's a lot of wind, no wind, things can change. But I do think there's a lot of movement there. And then too, just like Brigham said, just because we talked about how this piece is was really designed to be worn for big chunks of time, you can throw it on like a lightweight jacket at any point and use it like a lightweight jacket. And it's going to be a good option for that too. So I think there's a ton of usable aspects for this piece for a lot of people, but hopefully those are some parameters you can kind of take to use. Again, just kind of coming back to this piece is really unique. There are a few different pieces out there that try different things, but man, we really dialed in the body mapping specifically on the piece and the stretch and the comfort, and I think you guys are gonna just absolutely enjoy the heck out of it once you take that and put it in the field. We also worked really hard to get the pricing to a great spot. We're using 3 different fabrics. There's obviously manual labor that goes into this. There's the sourcing of those fabrics. There's some things there that can add up on price points, and there's name brands. I mean, we're using Japanese fabric for the outer. We're using Primaloft, which they're top tier manufacturer. I mean, the grid fleece comes from a super reputable. So it's we are using some of the highest end, most expensive fabrics to build this piece and bring it all together. But super happy with where this price point landed.
Yeah, I would just say the price point ended up where it ended up, and it had zero influence on the design or selection of a single material on this piece. And hopefully that kind of sinks into the listener and they absorb that if they find any other pieces out there, because there is no sacrifice or compromise in terms of materials that on this piece. Like, there is not a single choice that was affected by price. We use, in fact, the combination of materials we use is quite expensive.
Yeah.
But we're in the business that we're in, and we do it the way that we like to do it.
Yeah. So when I say like we wanted this price to be what it is, what I mean by that is we're literally taking lower margin on this piece to get the price point to where it is, like our own margin, our own markup. And we, obviously the more we order, we can get tiny, tiny price breaks. And so we did try to do that as well. But really happy with this because I think we priced it very lean, and I just think it's going to be an exceptional piece for a lot of people, especially when you go out there and start comparing it to other, anything else really. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think this is just one of the most unique pieces in the Mountain Pursuit line. It's a piece that I think will fast become one of the favorites of. So when we did this testing with this group of larger testing group, right, of 20 plus people, this was the piece that came back. Like, I mean, you talked to them. So like,
oh yeah,
you constantly said like, this is the piece that they were just the most excited about or the most positive feedback about.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Far and away. It was, I mean, got just a lot of positive feedback. I mean, people didn't hold back. Like they would mention anything that could be improved, but it just, as time went on, I mean, people are really, everybody that tested this just had so many good things to say about it, and the excitement about it is very high. Yeah, for sure.
And while we ordered almost double what we would normally order on a first purchase order, this is the piece I'm most worried about us stocking out of the fastest based off of conversations and feedback and stuff like that. So again, just to reiterate, this product is now for sale on pre-sale. We did that to try to get it into your guys' hands as fast as possible this fall season. So what it is on pre-sale only for about 3 weeks before we're able to start shipping it around the 1st of September. So we wanted to give you guys the option to get the earliest ship times possible, because we did break this into 2 shipments. We have an air shipment and a boat shipment. And so if you want this on the air shipment, that early ship date around September 1st, you're going to want to order this on the pre-sale and lock in that, as well as just lock in a piece in general in case we do have the kind of demand that we're more or less anticipating at this point. So, but yeah, this is the Pursuit Hybrid.
Well, let's hit sizing and colors real quick.
Oh, yes.
So sizing and colors, we are offering this in a few tall sizes as well. So medium tall, large tall, extra large tall, and then in regular sizes, small to 3XL. And then the colors are, it's called Dusty Olive. It's a lighter olive, and then gray and black.
Yep. No women sizing to start off this piece, correct?
Right.
But we found, take this for what it's worth, when we have these knit pieces with a lot of stretch and things like that, they work well for, as call them unisex, whatever you want. Like, I think those work a lot better for women than when we start to get pieces that don't have stretch in them, don't have give in them and stuff like that. So will we release it in women's? Highly likely that down the road we will. Hopefully by next year, if it turns out to be as popular as we are anticipating this piece to be. So, but yeah, that's the initial launch. For me personally, I wear the large tall, at 6'2", and just love the coverage that I get there. And so we've continued to release some of these pieces in the tall sizes, specifically in kind of the large and extra large is where we've got the most interest in those. So, I think that kind of covers it. Super excited to have this piece released. It's been years and years in the making. So many prototypes. I have a closet full of prototypes, and I think you have a significant amount more than that even.
A couple bins as well. Big bins full of prototypes.
But we really dialed this thing in. the feedback that we've had on it so far for those that have got to use it has been super promising, and we're super excited to get this into your hands. So that's the Pursuit Hybrid Fleece hoodie, and it's now on pre-sale. So again, thanks for joining us for this Behind the Designs episode, where we really break down the design process and intent of the pieces of gear that we build and release here at Outdoor Vitals. There will be one third piece coming. It probably won't be shipping until around October. So you hear us prior to that, gearing up to release that piece. And that is a puffy jacket with some changes and tweaks and things that you guys are really going to like. And we do have one other product release that's going to be coming, we'll just say around mid-September. So also be looking for that. Not an apparel piece. It's I think I've actually already talked about this a little bit. It's probably out there now. Yeah. So, and that's the newest version of the Shadow Light, which I am super excited about. And we'll talk about that on a different episode, but I've been in love with that pack lately, and it's the pack I took on the Colorado Trail. Phenomenal. So more of these episodes to come, more breaking down of the design processes. But thanks for tuning in. If this is the kind of episode you'd like to hear, make sure you are subscribed. Please share this with friends, rate and review the podcast and all that. It helps us grow and just help more people get into the vital outdoors. So appreciate your guys' time today, and we'll catch you in a future episode.